Hello and welcome to the podcast. If you love working with wildlife, then you are in the right place. This is what's coming up.
I started volunteer wildlife caring at the age of 12. I remember driving around with my dad, doing snake catching. So I'd be out catching venomous snakes, and we'd get to a house and they'd be like, "Oh, cute, you've brought your son." No. I'm just driving around because he hasn't got a license, but he's here to catch a snake. An area in Australia where you wouldn't expect to see a thylacine or a Tasmanian tiger. And I'm not saying that we see the real thylacine, but there is engravings of thylacines on the rocks. What I learnt 3 years on the job was absolutely more valuable than going to uni for 3 years. 99.999% of prospectors are going to tell you that the best part about mining is digging up your first big nugget. And they're probably going to look at me and think I'm crazy when I tell you what my favourite part is. I've got a dilemma here. I've got this blind snake, and to my knowledge, they're not on the Abrolhos anywhere. Yeah. But I'm also knowing that if I fly back with this blind snake, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble.
National parks in Australia.
Okay, I'm going to say overrated. And that's only because, all right, I know this is really controversial. I know you're just looking at me going, what?
Welcome to the Working with Wildlife podcast, where purpose meets passion in the natural world. Whether you've been dreaming about working with wildlife or you have already built your life around it, this is the place where you'll find real stories and honest insights. Searching for gold, ancient artifacts, and wildlife sounds like an epic adventure that is almost too good to be true. Well, today's guest is a bit of a modern-day Australian Indiana Jones who starred in the Australian TV series Aussie Gold Hunters. Kyle Wilson has amassed a growing online following where he gets to share his passion and love for Australian wildlife. In this conversation, you're going to learn more about his life, what he does, and what allows him to discover and work with some of Australia's ancient history. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation. Please welcome to the show, Kyle Wilson. Kyle, man, thanks for coming on to the show. I am so stoked to be hearing about what's going on in your life. You have so many awesome passions that I'm really looking forward to hearing about, and I know my listeners are looking forward to hearing about. So, bit of an introduction to yourself. What do you do? What's your work? What's your passions? Brief overview to Kyle Wilson.
Well, firstly, Jaden, thank you so much for having me on, man. It's an absolute pleasure to get on here and tell a little bit of my story. I have a very diverse background. I am not your normal kind of bloke. I'm based in a little old town called Karratha, which is in the Pilbara region of WA. And I have a couple of jobs. One of my jobs is a heritage field officer. So I work for a mining company, and what I do is I go out on country and basically protect areas of cultural heritage. Now, one of the beautiful things about cultural heritage is it kind of meshes in, environmental sides of things. So I'm really lucky in the sense that I get to see the environment from a cultural perspective, dealing with traditional owners and learning things that I would never have normally got the chance to learn. And the other part of what I do is I have a gold mine. So I know that sounds crazy. But,
yeah, you do.
But when I say,
so wild.
Yeah.
Tell us what's going on.
Look, so I'm a partner in an alluvial gold mine. So basically, me and my business partner Levi get out on country and we hunt gold nuggets. That's what we do. So that's basically what we do. We're out on country, me and Levi together with our detectors and our little excavator, and we just
so cool.
We're on country digging up gold nuggets. We're literally land pirates, treasure hunters. It's epic.
Oh yeah. Oh, so wild. So how long you've been doing this only for a couple of years? This gold mining.
So we started the company probably about 18 months ago, and we officially broke ground New Year's Eve last year. So we've been going for about 18 months in terms of the mining. And part of that as well is we feature on Aussie Gold Hunters. So Levi's been on that for I think 4 years now. His fourth year was with me, and I joined Levi when I basically set up business with him on season 10. So that was a bit of a wild experience as well. Something that I never thought I'd get the opportunity to do, man. And honestly, it was awesome. Loved every moment of it. And
wow.
Hopefully there's a season 11, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. We'll find out. So, can I want to in the rest of the conversation? I want to hear about this gold mining. I'd love to hear about what that experience was like. Getting on TV. That's a bit of a process there. I think I remember hearing you saying somewhere that you wanted to be on TV somewhere doing something, and you didn't know how you're going to do it, but here you are, you're doing it. So I'd love to hear about that. It's been gone for 18 months. Love to hear a little bit about how gold prospecting works, kind of the process and what that was like for yourself. But you said, well, wildlife-wise, you said that you're a cultural heritage officer, and you kind of did that before you did the gold mining. So how long have you been a cultural heritage officer for?
So I've been involved in the heritage space probably as a heritage field officer for about 3 years now, just over 3 years. Previous to that, I was a ranger coordinator. So I was working for Murujuga National Park, which is pretty much the Burrup Peninsula. It's a part of Karratha, and it's known for having the largest concentration of petroglyphs on the face of the planet. There's a huge amount of engravings, rock art. And so what my job there was basically a ranger coordinator. I would go out with a bunch of young Indigenous rangers, and we would care for country. And what that was about was manage.
What does that look like? Yeah.
So basically, it was a joint management thing. So Parks and Wildlife partnered with Murujuga, who was the Aboriginal Corporation. And what it was all about was bringing modern day conservation practices together with cultural management practices and managing country the way that traditional custodians would like to manage it. So that was my first step into heritage. And the way that I got into that was I've been working for Parks and Wildlife on and off for the last 15 years behind the scenes with that. So that's kind of how I got into the cultural heritage space, and it kind of moved from that into what I do now. So, but yeah,
you said 15 years, did you say?
Yeah. Look, probably
awesome.
longer. Wildlife for me was something that was just, it was in my blood as soon as I got out the womb, like I was crawling around picking up bugs and bits and pieces.
Came out catching bugs. Yeah, awesome.
And I started volunteer wildlife caring at the age of 12. I remember driving around with my dad, doing snake catching. So I'd be out catching venomous snakes, and we'd get to a house and they'd be like, "Oh, cute, you've brought your son." No. I'm just driving around because he hasn't got a license, but he's here to catch a snake. So that it started really young for me, man. It started really young.
So cool. So your dad wasn't the snake catcher you were?
Oh no, he doesn't want to go anywhere near snakes. He's
dad.
Yeah. So he was just the moral support driving his 12-year-old son around to basically catch problem snakes that are in people's yards. But yeah, man,
wow.
I had some crazy encounters with snakes that most 12-year-olds probably would never get the opportunity to have.
Wouldn't.
Unless your last name's Erwin. But hey.
Unless your last name's Erwin, no. For those of us, those of the listeners that don't actually know where Murujuga, for those that don't know where Murujuga is and that part of Australia, could you give a bit of a topographical kind of idea, geological idea, like where you are?
Yeah, so if you get WA, right, top to bottom, middle, that's Karratha. And the Dampier Archipelago is basically just off the coast of Karratha. So you've got Dampier and then all of the islands that kind of, within that archipelago. I'm just totally throwing a number out here, one that kind of sits in my head. I think it's around about 163. I could be completely wrong, but there's a huge amount of islands out there. And, that kind of encompasses the Murujuga National Park as well as the mainland.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a pretty wild spot. It's very, very harsh country, very harsh, very unforgiving, but incredibly beautiful in its own way. It's a wild patch of dirt.
So did you grow up in Western Australia and that's how you came across this opportunity to start working as a ranger, or did you move around a little bit?
I was born and bred in Geraldton, which is a small coastal town about 400 kilometres north of Perth in WA. And I spent most of my childhood there. So, my parents were super supportive of everything I did. Most kids would be, playing team sports and, going to parties and stuff, going through their early teens. Me, Mum, drop me down at the river. I'm going to spend my weekend catching frogs and tadpoles and rescuing fish that are in dried up pools and bits and pieces like that. So, man, it was always something that was ingrained in me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. That's just kind of where it all started, and it's
kind of started out.
Yeah. It's got to this point.
Yeah. So this point now, which is you've been on TV and you are a gold prospector and a heritage field officer. Have you had any other wildlife working? What maybe a better way of saying that is, what wildlife jobs have you had up until now?
So working for Parks and Wildlife, there was a huge amount of interaction with wildlife. It was I was an operations officer. I was a ranger. I was a few other bits and pieces, and I got to go out on baseline fauna surveys. That's probably the most profound thing I got to do when I was working for the department, and that was basically where you go out on country and you take a representative sample of the fauna that's living in an area so you can get an idea. So, pastoralism is a big thing over here in WA, stations. So they're massive plots of land and they're basically like sheep or cattle farms. So there was a point where, I think it was the early 2000s, where Department of Parks and Wildlife went through and they were buying up a lot of the pastoral company to kind of turn it back into conservation estate. And because it was always, pastoralism, there was never really any work done to work out what lived in these places. So, when Parks and Wildlife bought up these stations, the next thing that I had to do was go out and do baseline fauna surveys to get a representative sample of what was actually living on this, on that country. So we'd go out as a team, go out and camp in the bush for 2 weeks, set up pitfall traps, Elliott traps, the whole lot, and just spend 2 weeks in the bush catching different bits and pieces. It was unreal.
Wow. So tell me, how did you get that opportunity? What was the lead up to that? What learning, what's the good word for that? Did you just finish school and you went straight to that, or did you have to do other forms of learning to get to that point?
Being a pest, man. So when I was younger, like 12, I knew what I wanted to do. Most kids, when they're growing up, they got no idea what they want to do. Yeah, you go to school, you get your TER, you go do a degree, you work out what you want to do in life. I was pretty lucky in the sense that I knew what I wanted to do. So, I was that kid that was kind of staring at the roof in year 8 and 9, dreaming about what I was going to be doing on the weekend, going out and catching snakes or whatever else. And I guess for me, because I had such a clear direction on what I wanted to do, as soon as I got out of school, the first thing I did was hit up the local Parks and Wildlife, office and be like, hey, I want to work for you. And I just never let up, man. So I was always down there. I, started volunteering at a very young age. I started going out with one of the local wildlife officers. Kev, he was a legend, like he'd literally, when he'd go to work, he'd be letting me know that, all right, we're going to go do some feral pig reconnaissance, or we're going to go out and do this or that, or, some baiting programs. So he would literally come and pick me up after school, and we would go out together.
Wow.
And, we just, it was epic. And that kind of...
how old are you here? You like 16, 17 here?
Yeah, look, 13, 14, 15.
Younger?
Yeah. I was
a lad.
Yeah. And like another way that another thing that really pushed me in that direction was there was a guy in town in Geraldton called, Shane Herriot, and he was a herpetologist, so just a mad keen interest with snakes, and he had like a ecotourism business called Touch the Wild Safari Tours, and so he would run like these weekend wildlife walks. So I was like the little 12-year-old groupie, always just at his tour at the front, asking a million questions. I'm sure he used to get so sick of it because I'd be like, Shane, what's this or what's that? And he'd always have his snakes and his bits and pieces there. And I know he used to get, pretty jacked off because it was like this little dude's just like chasing you around, like trying to be your entourage. So, I was always just actively involved in things that I knew I wanted to do. And when I finished school, I went through what's called... Well, actually, no, I put in for a gig because I've been volunteering for such a long time. I managed to get on conservation employee crew, which is basically like an entry level into Parks and Wildlife at that stage. So we'd be going out doing prescribed burns and a whole heap of conservation work. So the biology surveys, feral animal mitigation, the whole lot. And I got into that, and my supervisor at the time was telling me, right, if you want to go any further, you have to go to uni and get a degree and rah, rah, rah. And I ended up enrolling in Cert 2, 3 and 4 in conservation and wildlife. Did that and then applied for the graduate recruit program for the department, which was basically like, it was like an apprenticeship, but in terms of like parks and wildlife. And so there was a minimum entry requirement of like a Cert 4 in conservation land management, or, you had like a degree in enviroscience. So I already had the Cert 4. So I thought, look, I'm just going to give it a crack. I'm going to see if I can get in on the minimum entry requirement, because if I go to uni for 3 years, it's only going to get me the same entry, if you know what I mean. So I'd have to use 3 years studying to get into the same program. And I got in on the minimum entry requirement because of the volunteer work that I'd done,
awesome.
And I think for me personally, like a lot of people will probably have a different opinion, but I think what I learnt 3 years on the job was absolutely more valuable than going to uni for 3 years, So for me, I went the back door.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because you're picking up hands-on skills, right? You're out and about. You're living and breathing it. You're picking up the things that you wanted. You're there. Like, you go to uni, I would have had to have moved to Perth. I would have had to have studied books for 3 years. And, I learn by seeing and touching and feeling and doing things. So for me to get out and actually get in on the minimum entry requirement, I thought to myself at the time, spend 30 grand on a degree or and get into the same program, or just go from here and get in and do what you're going to do. So that's what I did. And, that was kind of my entry into parks and wildlife. And, man, it kind of it spanned over the next 25 years.
25 years. Wow. That's a long time, 25 years. But you started when you were right out the boom, you've said. So the passion for wildlife has been forever, as far back as you can remember. Has every job you've ever done had something to do with wildlife?
Look, there was a stage, I think, where you're a child, you run on dreams and, fairy tales, right? You have this idea of this thing that you want to do. So you want to be an astronaut, or I want to be an Air Force pilot, or I want to be a scientist, or whatever. So, I'd always had the thing that I want to be Steve Irwin, man. He was my idol, like I idolized him right from the moment I'd seen him, and I always knew that I wanted to do something like that. And so, I went through the process that I went through, got a job with Parks and Wildlife, and then I was in my early 20s and got a girlfriend, and she wanted to move to Perth. So I gave up my career in Parks and Wildlife to go down to Perth to support her. And, that
would be a tough move. That would be a tough move, tough decision to make.
It was super tough. And, I was early 20s. And then I think from that point, I kind of got sucked into the whole, all right, you're not a kid anymore. You got to work. You got to pay the bills. You got to do this. You got to do that. And so I kind of lost my vision, I guess, for, 10 years. And then turned 30 and, Peter Pan happened. The kid come back and I was like, you know what? I know what I want to do. I'm going to pick up where I left off, and I moved to Karratha for my partner now, Kalia. She was living up here, and I met her in Perth, and she was like, look, I'll either come to Perth or you come up to Karratha. And I was at that point where I was like, right, let's go. Let's throw everything away. I'm going to move to the Pilbara and I'm going to start a new life and get back into the things that I want to do. And,
what was that like?
It was wild.
Like to start, like you said, like a new life. So you're starting from scratch is what you're saying. So you're saying you've lost yourself 10 years. Your head's down, got to work hard, don't have fun. You have fun, but
working FIFO,
dream to the side,
doing
kind
the
of thing.
City life, got sucked up in life, you know what I mean? Like, adult
so
life.
you're sucked up in life, and then now you've hit 30 and you're like, no, I'm dropping. So you started from scratch and you moved to the Karratha, you said.
Yeah. So I met Kalia at a bodybuilding comp. So when I was in my 20s, I got into bodybuilding quite hard. It was, I guess, I moved to the city and I needed a coping mechanism, right? Like, I was away from wildlife. All of my passions, all the things that I love doing were taken away from me because I was following my heart and going down to, support my partner at the time. And, I got into the fitness scene and I made a career doing that. I got a job, FIFO on a mine site, managing a gym and, like a camp gym and, kind of
awesome.
just got kind of caught up in that whole life. So I was still doing FIFO and, you know, being in areas that had, you know, the outdoor areas, but I let go of my passion, if you know what I mean. So I kind of let go of my passion. And, you know, when I got 30, I met Carly, my partner now, and like I was saying before, and, you know, it was a case of her either coming down to Perth or me going up to somewhere new that I'd never been before. And I kind of sat back and I thought to myself, you know, like, I want to get back into what I'm doing. So I literally quit my job. I had an awesome job that paid good money. I was at a good roster. I quit my job, packed up my Hilux, and I drove to Karratha. And that's where this version of Kyle kind of started when I got up here, because I put my roots back into the red dirt, and I was like, all right, now you know what you want to do. Let's go. Let's chase it. Let's get it. So
okay, so what are you chasing? You've made the move. What are you chasing now?
Adventure. You know, my Instagram's He Is Wild and Free, and that is basically everything that I am, wild and free, and I just love being out and about and enjoying life. And I got up.
So cool.
I got up here, and I still at that stage hadn't gotten back into the wildlife side of things. I was working for another mining company, and you know, it was a very rudimentary job. You know, like doing processing and bits and pieces like that. And I actually got into a bit of workplace depression. I was just not enjoying life. I was, you know, I was going through a patch of like hating my job and just thinking, you know, this is not what I want to do. So, I ended up, you know, like quitting that job after a couple of years of being in Karratha, and that's when everything kind of took off. It was actually when I was down in Perth for Christmas. We were down at Carl's dad's place, my father-in-law, and we were watching Aussie Gold Hunters on the TV. So, you know, Carl's dad and his partner were right into this show, and we're watching it, and I was sitting there watching the show, and I'm like, that looks like Karratha, you know, like that looks like Karratha. And it was Levi. It was my business partner now that was on the show. And I was that looks unreal. Like, because I've always had a bit of an affinity for, you know, treasure and wild. I think of wildlife as treasure, just like anything that's in the bush, you know, natural treasure. So I remember the first time I seen something sparkly was in my granddad's shed. He was a bit of an outdoorsman, like full driving and all that kind of stuff. And he had like a box of amethysts in his shed. And ever since, you know, I was fascinated by these crystals. So I've always had a bit of a thing for treasure. And when I seen Aussie Gold Hunters and I seen people actually out doing this for a living, you know, like making a living of being out on country, digging up nuggets, you know, no JHAs, none of this stuff. You're just literally out there living your life on your terms, making money. Like, I was like, I'm sold. I want to get into this. And it was something, prospecting was something I always thought I'd get into. But, you know, you think about the old day prospectors, like, you know, dudes missing a few teeth in their 60s walking around with a detector. And so I was like, oh, maybe that's something I'll get into when I'm a kid. Yeah, when I get a bit older.
I'd love to look like that.
And then when I seen like a young dude out there making a solid crack of it, I was like, this is in my backyard. Like, this is where I live. And so this is where that whole manifestation process comes in, right? Like I said to Carl that night, I'm like, we're gonna go home. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get a detector. I'm gonna start prospecting. I'm gonna get on this show. And I was just joking around with her at the time, you know. 3 years later, down the track, here we are. So
on the show,
yeah.
Season 10 now going to season 11. So
yeah, fingers crossed. We don't know yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, we're hoping. We've been hopeful. You said, like, I mean, you've done what you wanted to do, but to kind of start a business to get to here, did it take a lot of funding? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. Look, we had to get an excavator and a few other bits and pieces and put some money into it. So there was definitely a bit of risk involved with doing it. But you know, like, if you end up if you're a millionaire, right, and you end up going to you die, what happens? You go to the grave that you never spend it. So I've always had this thing with money where it's like, you know, use money to make money. And like, after seeing the TV show, it gave me this little bit of a boost of going, oh, these guys are doing it. Let's just do it. Let's invest. Let's get into it. Let's go hard. And so, yeah, look, there was definitely a bit of a financial risk involved with it, but like, took the plunge, jumped into the deep end, and just give it a crack. And look, I've also got a job, so like I'm like I live a double life. I'm 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So 2 weeks of my life, or 2 weeks of the month, I'm away, doing my heritage officer thing, and then 2 weeks when I'm home, I'm out digging up gold. So kind of live a bit of a double life, but there's wildlife involved in all of that.
There is, and that's where your social media kind of comes into play as well, with sharing that wildlife side of things. Now, I'd like to hear a bit of like an overview of what it looks like to be a gold prospector. If someone, like you've had to go through the rough. I didn't know if you had a mentor, someone who you reached out to, was like, hey, what do I need? What do I need to do? What kind of price range are we maybe looking at to start something like that? What kind of what thoughts do you have to have in place? What kind of safeguards do you have to have in place? How do you have to get some permits? Who do you reach out to? Those kinds of things. What do you have to have in mind?
So there's so
when
many
you're creating something like this.
There's so many different levels to gold mining and prospecting, all right? Like at the very base level, if you just want to get out and go prospecting, you buy a metal detector, you get a miner's right from the Department of Mines in WA here, which is like $25. You have it for life. And you can go out on depending ground and you can walk around with a metal detector. So metal detectors aren't cheap. Like if you want a decent metal detector, you're looking at around about $8,000. So there's an investment straight off the cap. You're looking at about $8,000 for a detector, $25 for a miner's right, and then you can basically go out and walk around on pending ground, or you can get like a 40E permit, which you pay $90 for, which gives you 3 months to detect in the area that you've kind of selected. So that's prospecting at a grassroots level. Just weekend warriors that want to get out and find gold. When you get into doing it, in terms of a business or a company where you actually want to get out and you want to actively mine gold, it's a whole different ballgame.
Different ballgame, right?
Yeah, there's like you've got to be able to get ground to be able to do that on. Yeah, so
so you actually got to purchase the ground.
Well, you can purchase it, you can peg it, you can do a deal with another company.
Landowner.
Yeah, it's not so much a landowner. So tenements is what you deal with in mining, and tenements is like basically a plot that you've pegged that gives you the ability to put in a POW to carry out mining activities. But if you look at somewhere like Karratha, it's quite in depth. So there's an app that most prospectors use, and it's called Trellebyte. And basically what that is it's like a mapping. It's a mapping app, and you can put different layers on there. So you can put tenement layers on and all these other bits and pieces. So there's lots of levels to it. But like I said, even on the base level, being a prospector, you still have to use that app to see where you can and can't go. And then you need to learn about geology. You need to learn about behavior of gold. Like that, man, it's, I'm starting to think about it. Like, obviously I've been doing it for a while and it's all stored up there. But if I was going to say to someone, if someone said to me, oh, look, I want to be a gold miner, how do I do it? I'd probably look at them and say, I don't know. You know what I mean? I just jumped in the deep end and learnt as I went. There's so many different aspects to it. There's finding the gold, there's tenement management, there's tenement acquisition, there's building relationships, there's so many facets to it, man. It's definitely not an easy thing to get into. It sounds easy.
1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 necessarily.
Exactly, yeah. And look, it sounds and looks easy on the TV show, and I think that's probably the thing that lured me into it, because I was like, oh, this looks pretty easy. These guys just got just got an excavator and he's digging a hole and he's picking up nuggets. And then when you actually start to get into the bones of it, there's a lot more to it. Put it this way.
More to it. Okay.
I don't have a day off. So, I'm always working, and, it's one of those things. Like when they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life as well. So that's another part to that, right? Like if you truly want to, get a job where you get absolute satisfaction out of it, you got to love what you do. And so that's where I'm lucky in life. Right now I can hand on my heart say everything I do, I love. So I never feel like I'm working, even though I'm working every day.
So cool. Well, that's such a privilege to be able to do that, but also just amazing. That's so cool that you'll be able to find something that you love so much, even though it's tough and you're working so hard, you're loving what you do. And your passion comes through as well through what you put online with the content that you produce. Your passion's definitely coming through. And so that's kind of like maybe a bit of an overview for the gold mining prospect, the gold side of your working life. If there's anything else you want to add on there, actually, I think it'd be interesting. What was the most ecstatic moment you've had whilst mining for gold? Maybe it was your first time, or you've been working 100 hours in one day. However you fit 100 hours into a 24-hour day. But you get what I'm saying.
So 99.999% of prospectors are going to tell you that the best part about mining is digging up your first big nugget. And they're probably going to look at me and think I'm crazy when I tell you what my favorite part is. But obviously I've got another, there's another part of me. The wildlife thing's huge in me. So being out and about, detecting at night or the daytime and having encounters with just these little critters that you would never usually get the opportunity to see. Like every day that I'm out, I'm constantly amazed by the things that just happen to pop up, like through the process of doing what we do. Yeah. Like,
okay.
It's unreal, man. Like, scorpions, UV light, you're out prospecting at night time. The amount of spiders that you see, death adders, blind snakes, pythons, man, I couldn't try and give you a list of everything I see. It's almost impossible. Like you'll see in my videos some of the things I come across, and that's all.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It
cool.
just happens, like you just happen to be out there because, this is where a lot of people sometimes say to me, oh, you're into conservation, but you're a miner. And it's like, yeah, look, what we do is very different to mining. We're just high level prospectors. So we get out, and both Levi and myself.
Good question, but yeah,
we have an incredible respect for the environment, for culture, and that's why we do what we do, because we love being out there, and we can actually be out there doing something that we love and making an income from it, which is why we choose to mine the gold. But it's what, where was I going with that? So people say, how can you mine, and how can you be into wildlife?
How do you balance that up?
It's sustainable, right? So what we're doing is we're doing very low impact mining. We're basically going through and we're doing scrape and detect over, drainage lines that are just out in country. We scrape the dirt away, we detect, we get the gold, we pull the dirt back over and we rehab it. But like the other part of where I was going with that is if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't get to see half the stuff I see. Because like these areas that I'm in, it's like that story I was just saying before about parks and wildlife, right? Like it's like, when I was doing the fauna surveys, traditionally those areas, nobody ever knew what that was there because they were never looking, right? So that pastoralists were there and they were just doing their thing, farming. Wasn't until it was a conservation estate that Parks and Wildlife would get in and they'd do a fauna survey. I'm not saying I'm doing fauna surveys, but I'm working in areas that most people would never otherwise go to. So I'm getting the opportunity to see these incredible things. You know what I mean? And I'm interacting with them. It's not like what we're doing isn't just getting out and steamrolling the bush. Where we're working in amongst it and man, I love the fact that I get to get out there and see the things that I see. Like, it's next level.
It's really cool, and also being that you love wildlife as well, it's probably you're one of the best guys to be out there because you're up there, you're protecting the wildlife, you're not just clearing the land. That gold might eventually be found anyway by someone who doesn't care about wildlife. So you are a buffer, if anything, for the wildlife out there, and 100%. You get to see it, experience it.
That's the other thing I was going to say. Who would you rather do it? Somebody that's got a serious passion for the country and the critters that call it home, or somebody that's just out there to rape and pillage. I educate while I'm out there as well, which is why I get into my whole content thing, getting out and showing people what's out in country, because most people just don't get the opportunity to see it.
and it's really good. So don't stop on the content. It's a lot of fun to watch. And so you've got the gold side of things. Super exciting. You love the kind of the moments, not that first gold nugget moment, but seeing the amount and the different kinds of wildlife out there is your ecstatic moment. So another part of your life as well, when it comes to work, is the cultural heritage field officer. What goes into that title? You was telling me a little bit before we started this conversation, before we started recording, some of the things that you've been able to see and find historically speaking. Could you tell us a little bit of some of those things and what that kind of job entails, and how, if someone else might want to do that job, how they're going to do that?
Look, man, it is an incredible job. I've been very lucky to be blessed with some fantastic jobs in my lifetime, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more of those to come. But what I essentially do is, again, we just scale it up. So mining obviously involves ground disturbance, especially on a bigger scale. So what happens is my role is about going out and identifying areas of cultural significance. So there's a couple of steps to it. There's one, going out on country with traditional owners and actually looking for these areas. So again, if no one's been there, no one's looking for it. So if somewhere's going to be disturbed, we get out there and we basically clear the area to make sure that there's no areas there that, could be affected by ground disturbance. So that first part involves going out and walking on country with anthropologists, archaeologists, and traditional owners, and working with those guys to come across areas that, are culturally sensitive. And, some of the things that you come across out there, it's like if there was ever such thing as a time machine, that's it. You're literally out on country and you're stepping into a time window, right? You're going back. You could be seeing like a stone artifact on the ground that's like a representative of a blade or a tool that's literally thousands of years old. Someone's used that and discarded it, and you're picking it up and seeing it for the first time since someone's touched it. Paintings or engravings in rock shelters, of whatever it was that they were trying to say. Whatever they seen on country, like grinding stones. So you come across like the stones on the ground that have been used for grinding up paints and spinifex seeds to make dampers and bits and pieces like that. It's unreal. It's a really cool thing. And some of the things that you see in terms of the engravings are just mind blowing. Like Burrup Peninsula, for example. An area in Australia where you wouldn't expect to see a thylacine or a Tasmanian tiger. And I'm not saying that we see the real thylacine, but there is engravings of thylacines on the rocks. So that's telling you that with a certain degree of certainty that, they were walking around there at one stage, because the guys have seen them and depicted them on the rocks. It's insane.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And megafauna. So you see things like giant kangaroos or giant wombats, like things that they've interpreted and then put on the rocks. So that's one of the coolest parts, seeing some of the things. Yeah, man. It's like I said, you're taking a step back in time. It's nuts.
Yeah, so that must feel pretty amazing to be able to step back in time like that. And so are you saying that some of these times, that some of these experiences you're stating is when you've been kind of that first row of people that have gone out and you've kind of discovered these with your team? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep. And so that's the first part of it. So that's actually getting out and then, doing the survey. And then the second part of that is obviously making sure that we protect those areas. So another part of my job is ensuring that we educate people on site about the significance of these areas and why it's so important to protect them, fencing them off and basically managing them on behalf of the traditional custodians. So, yeah.
Can you tell me what has been the most amazing discovery you've had with your team walking out there?
Oh, man, I don't think I could really pinpoint one. They're all so incredible in their own way. I think
I had a feeling that might have been tough.
Yeah. Look, some of the standout stuff would have to be some of the engravings and stuff you see, because you get lost in it. You sit there and you look at it, and it's like I said, it's stepping back in time, and you get lost in the moment because you're sitting there looking at this engraving on a rock, and you almost take yourself back to when that was put there. You know what I mean? You put yourself. It's almost like you go into a bit of a trance, man. You just kind of sit there and you're like, wow, this is incredible. You know what I mean? And I think the most powerful thing about it for me is, you know, like these people were out there, not just working with wildlife, but living with wildlife, integrating with wildlife. And you can see it through everything that's left. You know, all the remnants that are left behind just show you that there was this amazing integration, you know, caring for country. And it's mind-blowing, man. It's quite literally mind-blowing. It's one of those, there's so many humbling moments when you just step back and go, whoa, like I'm actually getting to be part of this, you know? And then the other part of what we do is a lot of monitoring. So once these areas are identified, we get to go out and the monitoring's another part of that again. So like we get because we have TOs that are out on country, they get invited to come out and do any monitoring trips that are happening out there. So, you know, we have consultants of all different walks of life. You could have botanists, you can have zoologists, you know, all these different people. And when they're doing bits and pieces on the ground, the TOs will come out and we'll go out with them as part of my job to, you know, be part of these monitoring trips. So the exposures I get to wildlife out there are insane. Like we go out and we do baseline fauna surveys and we do, you know, bat monitoring, quoll monitoring. Man, the list of stuff that we get to do
is almost unnumberable. Innumerable? A lot of can't count it.
No, you can't.
You get to go on helicopters. You're flying around in helicopters as well.
Just about to say. So a lot of the areas that we go to can't be accessed by vehicles because it's just too remote. So we chopper in. So yeah, man.
So you do that.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That is insane. Can you tell me like give me one story of a moment that you kicked a rock and something was underneath there, like something caught your eye, or you came around a corner and you saw this something. Can you tell me of a time or a story that kind of sits in your mind of discovery for you?
Okay, so I've got a really good one, and this isn't in my. Like, this isn't since I've been in the Pilbara. This is when I was working for Parks and Wildlife. So in Geraldton, there's a cluster of islands off the coast, the Abrolhos Islands. They're beautiful. They're really well known for the Batavia. Have you ever heard of the Batavia? It was like a shipwreck. So it was like a story of mutineers and it was crazy. So basically, I'm probably going to mess the story up, but I think it was an English ship that ran aground on the Abrolhos Islands and basically all the crew that were inside, there was convicts and there was like, obviously, you know, your old school sailors or like you know, pirates of the Caribbean type thing. And so these guys, there was two islands and I think one group of crew got on one island and then the bunch of convicts were on the other. It was like this mutineer story. There was murder and all different bits and pieces going on. So that's what the Abrolhos is really well known for. But it's also a really cool spot in terms of wildlife because it's about 40 kilometres off the coast of Geraldton. Again, that could be give or take a little bit. I can't quite remember. But because it's isolated from the mainland, there's a heap of different species on there. So there's a whole range of reptiles out there that are all subspecies to what's on the mainland because they've been isolated for such a long time. You've got carpet pythons out there. You've got king skinks, spiny-tailed skinks, dragons. Anyway, there's a whole range of wildlife out there. But
whole range,
yeah. But they've all kind of been documented and whatnot. Anyway, part of my job was to fly over once a month, and I was actually over there for weed eradication. So, Verbicida enceloides is it looks like a sunflower. It's quite noxious over here, and the Abrolhos Islands has also got a massive fishing industry. So the Western rock lobster is what it's known for. So there's people that'll actually go over there. This is a very long story, by the way. I'm kind of way off where we were going, but anyway,
I'm learning.
Yeah. So rock lobster fishery, and, you know, crew will go over there for the island season, which is like the fishing season. So, you know, I had a lot of friends at school that would just get on a boat and disappear for like 3 months of the year and spend time on the islands. But
wow,
obviously when you've got people living on islands, you're introducing things, right? So, you know, rats can get on boats and different bits and pieces. And in this instance, birds would pick up these seeds from this noxious weed that's on the coast, and then bring it over to one of the islands. So they got spread on the runway, so that you get to the islands by plane and you get to the islands by boat. And where the runways were, there was obviously cleared, so you've got disturbed ground, which, as you know, any weed loves to get in disturbed ground, and these weeds basically went prolific on the runway. So my job was to go over once a month and take some volunteers over and remove these weeds and then fly them back to the mainland. So we were trying to get rid of them.
Cool.
Cool. Now, being a amateur herpetologist, you know, weeds, you know, that ticking up the weeds, but I'm always got my blinkers on. I'm looking everywhere else for anything else that's moving on the ground. And
yeah.
So I'm seeing all the normal wildlife, all the bits and pieces that are over there. Like I said, the king skinks, the dragons, all the bits and pieces. And we finish our work. So I take the volunteers down to the beach because the coast is the beaches on these islands. Magic, absolutely beautiful. Like you got the Lewin Current that runs down the West Australian coast, and it's the other thing that the Abrolhos is renowned for is pristine coral reefs. So I've taken the crew down to have a bit of a swim after we've, you know, finished all the bits and pieces that we had to do in terms of getting rid of the weeds. And instead of going in the water, I'm a bit of a land pirate, right? I'm not really big on the water. So I've let the guys have a swim, and I've kind of taken off and I've walked up around the edge of the coast and I'm flipping rocks. And so I flipped a rock and there was a blind snake under the rock. And I'm like, in my mind, I know what is on the island. And to my knowledge, there's no blind snakes. The only snake that occurs on the island is a carpet python. And my boss at Parks and Wildlife used to rip into me all the time because I had a habit of collecting things, you know, and I always used to get in trouble for collecting things that I shouldn't collect. You know, anyone that's into wildlife loves collecting things, whether it's, you know, if you want to do a species ID or whatever and let it go. And so he always used to get really annoyed with me collecting things. And I'd been in trouble for it a couple of times, and I've got a dilemma here. I've got this blind snake, and to my knowledge, they're not on the Abrolhos anywhere. Yeah. But I'm also knowing that if I fly back with this blind snake, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble. Yeah. Now, this is going back 15 years, right? So, you know, we have iPhone, longer, probably 20 years, man. Like I was in my early 20s and I'm 38 now. So we're probably going back almost 20 years. So iPhones were not a thing. We didn't have the ability to just call and take photos. Phones were like, you know, the old Nokia 3310 where you played Snake and you had no camera on that. There ain't no camera or anything on that. And so I'm sitting there and got this blind snake in my hands and I'm like, no, it's worth it. It's worth it. You're gonna cop this one. So I took it back on the plane and I get into the office and I go to see Noddy and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm gonna get in trouble here. Anyway, I get in and sure enough, blasts me and I'm like, I'm in trouble because I've picked something up off the island that I shouldn't have picked up. And then he has a look at it and he goes, hang on, it's a blind snake. There's no blind snakes there. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's why I've got it. Anyway, long story, man. Long story. But the end of that story is it ended up being a new species. So
really?
Yes. So
you discovered a species of blind snake?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah. So that was probably one of my most memorable kind of experiences because at the time...
Did you get to name it?
I didn't. I don't think that's actually true.
Blindus Chilus Slitheralis.
Yeah, I think it ended up getting a name like Australis. It was a subspecies, so it occurred on the mainland, but because this one had been isolated for such a long time, like all the other things that were there, it was a subspecies. Yeah. So technically not a new species, but it was a subspecies. It had different DNA to the ones on the
still something. Yeah. That's cool.
And then while we're on the topic of snakes, I had another really wild experience as well. Again, collecting. I was a wildlife carer. I So people used to bring me, injured wildlife and stuff, and I'd rehabilitate them and get them back. And this one day, I got a call from a guy who worked for Telstra, and he was lifting the pits, and he found a bunch of eggs in the the telecom pit or whatever it was. And so he brought them around to me. I knew they were snake eggs. Yeah. And I'd kind of, thought, all right, I'm going to take these on. I'm going to see if I can hatch them. And long story short, I did a bit of old school Googling and worked out how to make a makeshift reptile incubator. So I had a 5-litre ice cream container, cut a circle in the lid, put some vermiculite in there with some water, and put a bit of Glad wrap on the top so air could go through, but the moisture stayed in. And look, the success rate of probably being able to hatch them was, I didn't think it was going to be high. I was like a 12-year-old kid. Anyway, I remember, no, I was even younger than that. I was in primary school, so I would have been maybe 9 or 10.
Oh, smokes. Thanks for the time clarification. Yeah,
so I've set this up and I've put it in the laundry at mum and dad's house, and I've left it there for ages. I've got mum to check on it every day because I'm at school and I'm just sitting there. All I can think about is these snake eggs. Anyway, I'm at school and it's the middle of the afternoon, and I'm sitting there probably looking at the roof thinking about these snakes, and I get the principal comes in and goes, Kyle, can you need to come to the office. I said, oh, yeah, okay, cool. So I went up, and mum had called the phone and she's like, Kyle, you need to get home now. And I'm like, why? So there's 25 eggs. 25 Western Browns hatch all at once. So that was another really wild thing for me, in terms of an awesome moment. I get home, super excited, run into the laundry, peer through this little bit of Glad wrap window, and there's 25 little Western Browns. Yeah. And that was really cool because I ended up that was my first newspaper article, the local newspaper got involved, and they're like, this 9-year-old kid's managed to hatch, all these baby snakes that were found in a thing. So that was another really cool moment. I've got so many of them, man. I've got so many of them.
That's wild. Yeah, I believe you. That's something. Wow. 9 years old, 25, and now 38. And have there ever been any close calls out in the bush? You're outside of general, the close proximity to hospitals. Have you ever gotten, maybe whilst collecting, a little bit more than you bargained for?
Look, you know what? I have never had a situation where I've ever needed a first aid kit. Never. Look, I probably touched my fair share of things that you probably shouldn't touch, but I have a massive respect for anything that's venomous, man. It's one of those things where, I understand the implications of what could happen if I did slip up, and I think that's why I've never had an issue.
Good. Cool.
Totally respect everything that I see out there, man. So it's one of those things where, touch wood, I've never had an issue where I've ever needed medical attention because of something that I've come across in the bush.
Yeah, well, that's good. I hope we can keep it like that, or you can keep it like that. It's up to you.
No. Tell a lie. Now you just. There was one. I was at work. I got bitten by a centipede. Centipede, bitten by a centipede, man, and that was probably the most excruciating thing I've ever been through. But I wasn't actively looking for wildlife, which is why I just thought about this one. I was at work, had gloves on, all the PPE, and I was lifting up some bits and pieces, and a centipede crawled up and bit me on the wrist. And at the time, I kind of seen it on there, and it gave me more of a shock than anything else. I grabbed it and pulled it off, and didn't think much of it. But then the 8 hours that followed, most excruciating pain I've ever been in my life. It's like you've dipped your arm in hot coals, so all the way up to the shoulder. And I ended up actually getting a staph infection from the bacteria that was on the pincers of this centipede. It was one of the giant centipedes. But yeah. So I got a massive skin infection from where it was, and it went all the way up my arm. But that's it. That's the only thing that I've had where I've actually needed medical attention.
That you can remember.
Yeah, that I can remember.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great. That's good. So, this kind of all stemmed from your work as a traditional heritage field officer. Thank you. So, if someone wants to get into the heritage field officer role, what would you suggest are some steps that they could follow to get to do and experience really something pretty special?
Look, I think so. With the company I work for, I've got a wildlife background, which is and you know, like a little bit of a cultural background from the stuff that I did with Murray as a range coordinator. But in a team of say 40 people, I'm the only one, or one of 2 or 3 of us that have actually got a wildlife background. Most of everybody else there is no formal qualification. You know, they like to have people that are obviously great at communicating, you know, because you're dealing with people all the time, know how to get themselves around like a situation in the bush. So working remote's obviously a huge one, but there's no real formal qualification set. You know, they obviously like people that have had a bit of an exposure to working in you know, that kind of scene before, but there's not many people that do that kind of job. So, you know, to give you a bit of an example, we've had chefs, we've had lawyers, we've had a whole range of different people, man, that have fallen into the job. Yeah. But look, you just have to look. I think one of the major things that you have to have if you're going to do a job like that is passion. You have to be passionate about what you do. You got to love what you do. You got to be genuinely interested in getting out there and learning and caring for things. I think that's probably the most important thing. The biggest thing
that you see. Yeah. Okay. And so biggest, most important thing is passion. Say, for what are people looking up? What kind of words are they looking up? Are we looking up
heritage
specific?
Field. Heritage Field.
Reaching out to people.
If you jumped on Seek and you put in Heritage Field Officer, that's probably what you'd want to look for, and that'll bring up a whole range of different things. You know, like I'm getting notifications in my email every day about Heritage Field just on Seek. So there's definitely a lot more. Yeah. If you just jump on Seek and you put like Heritage Field in the search field, you would get like a daily update on jobs that are going like that. There's a whole heap of different jobs like that. You can get like, you know, a lot of them are remote, so that's the other thing. Like, people have to realize, like, if you're going to get into a job like this, it's one of those things where you are working remote, away from everybody else and technology. That's why I say it's definitely a thing that you have to be passionate about, like, because, you know, some people
okay, makes sense.
Yeah, some people that, you know, ask what I do, I tell them, they're like, oh, that sounds amazing, but then you know, you see the other parts of it as well. You are working remote, you are away from your family for long periods of time, you are doing long days.
Those drawbacks. What is it like living with those drawbacks?
Look, for me, I love being in the bush and away from people, so it's not really a bad thing for me. You know, I've got all positives. It's all positive stuff for me because I love what I do. But I guess you know, working in the mining industry can be quite a lonely thing to do if you are somebody that, you know, loves being around people and doesn't like working long days. And the Pilbara obviously is one of the most hostile environments in Australia. It's incredibly hot, you know, like we're out walking around in the bush and it's, you know, it's nothing crazy to get a 50-degree day in summer. So
really?
Yeah. So, you know, I might make it look amazing and look like fun and, you know, all those glorious things that people go, wow, I can't believe you do that. But there are those flies, millions upon millions of flies.
The flies.
Yeah. It's a special kind of place, the Pilbara. I say that all the time. The Pilbara is uniquely beautiful and it's incredibly rugged and unforgiving. So that's what I think. That's what makes it so beautiful to me. It's one of those things you either love it or you hate it. But if people are interested in getting involved, the best thing you can do is jump on and search Heritage Field and see what comes up. And I think there's the other really cool resource is NRM Jobs. I'm sure you would have seen that. Like, that's an Australian based thing, NRM Jobs, which is like it's just for natural resource management jobs. So once you subscribe to that, it basically sends you an email every week for what we do, like what I do, what you do, fauna spotting. It goes out once a week and it's like every Thursday and it's like all the jobs in the state.
Awesome.
That's a really cool one too.
Yeah, NRMA Jobs.
NRM Jobs,
NRM Jobs. Cool. Okay, that's awesome. Maybe I put that in the description if I can find it as well, this conversation, because that's really neat. The passion, jobs, there's a lot that kind of goes into being able to live the life that you live, Kyle. So you're kind of, can we travel back in time a little bit?
Sure.
you said you loved wildlife since you're very young. Who do you think has had the biggest impact on you outside of Steve Irwin on the course of life that you've been able to take?
Well, look, Steve Irwin obviously is the OG.
Obviously takes the cake.
Yeah, you can't. Look, a lot of the Australian guys, man. David Attenborough outside of Australia. Look, growing up watching his documentaries, man, he is an incredible influence in my life. And then, you know, all of the other crew that do the things that I'm into. Malcolm Douglas was one. You know, he was the Barefoot Bushman. He was a really influential guy in my life.
Yeah, Barefoot Bushman. Rob Brettle. That guy.
No, so another? Malcolm Douglas was another one. He had a crocodile park in Broome.
Up north. Yeah.
You know, and there's even some social media influences like, Wildman Adventures. I don't know if you've seen him. He's a really cool dude that's up in... Yeah,
Wild Lad. Yeah. I actually might be having a conversation with him this soon. So
I've been talking to him, and I actually want to get up there and see a bit of the NT. So I'd love to try and tee up something up there with him. Yeah, he's a mad dog, man. I love everything he does, and he was actually one of the biggest inspirations for me, like getting into the social media side of things. You know, like it was something I always wanted to do, but it's such a daunting thing. You know, I mean, creating content and putting yourself out there, it's hard.
It is.
You kind
surprisingly.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, you know, like it's, you're putting yourself out there for the world to see, and it's, you know, not everybody in the world has good things to say. So when you put yourself on the public stage, you're going to open yourself up to scrutiny, right? Like, yeah. And so
big time.
I think I was always scared of that. And then, you know, it was something I always wanted to do, but I was always quite scared of putting myself out there and getting, you know, in the public eye. And after doing Aussie Gold Hunters and having the opportunity to work with, like, you know, world-class production crew, that was what kind of gave me the kick forward. It was like, you know, I was doing it. I was going to be on TV. So I learned how to film. I learned a lot about audio, you know, and that's kind of where I went, all right, sweet. I know how to talk on camera now. That was what the major push for me, you know, pushing my social media was. Yeah.
Okay, so the Aussie Gold Hunters, that was your first kind of online presence. That was before your present online presence, is what you're saying.
I had an Instagram. I've always had an Instagram, but I was behind the camera more so in front of it. So I was right into my photography. So wildlife photography was a massive thing for me. Landscape wildlife, love doing that. And I guess the other reason that I was never really in front of the camera was because I just didn't know how. Like, you know, like it's a really hard thing to kind of put yourself in front and, you know what to say, especially when you're filming a lot of this stuff by yourself. So yeah, prior to Aussie Gold Hunters, I was dipping my toes in because I've seen a lot of people that were starting to do it. And, you know, I think that the other part of it was, you know, when I go out and do what I do, I'm not doing it for everybody else. I'm doing it because I am incredibly passionate about the things that I do. And that's what you see.
For you,
what you see on there is my everyday life. You know, that's what I'm doing every day. And I think the cringy thing for me about getting into the social media world was I'm selling out, you know, like I don't want people to think I'm doing this just because I want to, you know, get clicks or get likes or anything. Like I genuinely want to educate people about what's out there, you know, because if people don't know, people don't care. And that was the thing for me that kind of pushed me forward, you know, showing people that these things actually exist. And then, you know, obviously getting some feedback from some of the stuff I put up. Like I was getting so many people message me and go, "Oh, well, I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that." You know, and that was kind of the other thing that propelled me forward. That's really cool. Yeah,
and getting that positive feedback is so encouraging, as you said yourself, to know that you're doing the good thing and that you've been helpful. You've been helpful to someone.
So Wildman was actually the one that inboxed me like when I first started, and he was like, "Dude, love your content. Keep going." And that was so humbling to me, like somebody that had obviously already made it in that space, you know, like we're talking about a dude that's got 500,000 followers. And, you know, like to have someone like that reach out to you and say, "Dude, love it, keep going." That was kind of, you know, that was definitely stoking the fire to keep moving and get to where, you know, getting to where I am now. So,
Yeah, well, that's really cool. I guess you say stoking the fire. So the people that did that were really David Attenborough and Steve Irwin were two big people for you. And what do you think it was about them that created such an impact for you?
Just someone that I could resonate with from such a young age. You know what I mean? Like we all have our heroes growing up as children, right? Like we all have these people that we aspire to. So, you know, I think probably an easy one to draw on is most kids have favorite sports stars. It's because it's something that they're interested in and they see someone doing really well in that space and they aspire to be more like them. So for me, growing up, Steve Irwin was everything that I embodied, man. Like he was somebody that wasn't just doing it for the sake of doing it. You could see that he had serious passion and fire and love for what he did, man. And that was what made me go, yeah, okay, like this is what I want to do. Because I, you know, you have to, an idea doesn't just come from anything. It has to be born from seeing something, and seeing somebody out there doing something that I loved, you know, on TV was kind of what pushed me in that direction. I was like, you know, that's, I wrote him a letter actually when I was 12 saying if I could go over and do work experience at Australia Zoo. And, you know, because that was, you know, that actually come from school. It was like, you know, we had to do like a work experience thing. Like, so we had to write a letter to like a workplace and say, hey, can we come and do like some work experience for a week so we get a taste of what it was like in the workplace? And so, when they said, you know, who are you going to write your letter to? I was like, Steve Irwin. And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do for a job. And I wrote this letter and sent it away. And I didn't expect to hear anything back because Mum and Dad kind of said to me, you know, don't be discouraged if you don't hear anything. He's very busy. Rah, rah. I got a letter back, and
oh wow,
yeah, it was basically saying, you know, don't give up what you're doing, like, you know, keep following that dream. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, you know, like you're only 12 years old and you can't come to the park, like type thing. Yeah, you know, hit us up when you're a bit older. And you know, I think it was 2 or 3 years later that he tragically died. And right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think in terms of, you know, why did he inspire me, man? It comes down to just raw passion. Like you can't tell me that there's any other guy out there that has, you know, it was genuine. You know, you could see what he was doing. Like it was just everything he did was so genuine. And like you could just tell he loved what he did. And I think that was why he was my biggest inspiration.
Yeah, quite a standout character in a lot of different ways. He's definitely one of the standout characters, and I also had I saw him when I was younger, and I'd watch his shows. I watched some other people as well. But another guy, that's why when you said Barefoot Bushman, there's another guy named Rob Brettle who also did wildlife work. Whose name was also had the Barefoot Bushman heading title name. Right. So, but wildlife, watching that guy, Steve Irwin had also an impact on kind of my interest and passion. So the fiery passion that he had has spread to so many people, and it's been quite amazing. The impact his life has had on so many people. Can I ask, I mean, wildlife has been a large part of your life, and you're also doing gold digging, prospecting, so many different cool and fun experiences, flying in helicopters. With everything that you've done in regards to wildlife and job making decisions, where do you go from here? You said you had a massive change when you completely restarted your life when you were late 20s, around 30 years old. What has been one of the most challenging or hardest decisions that you've ever had to make?
All right. So I think the hardest decision that I ever had to make was leaving Geraldton. So when I went through the graduate recruit program with Parks and Wildlife, it was like a 2-year program. So it's like you did your 2 years, and then after your 2 years, you were given permanency. So Parks and Wildlife is an incredibly competitive kind of job to get into. Like they'd give you a lot of short-term contracts. You'd never get full-time. And so you know, when you did the grad recruit program, after the 2 years, you were offered a permanent position. and my ex at the time, or my partner at the time, she wanted to go to Perth. And so I was like less than a month away from getting my permanency. And I'd almost done my 2 years, and I was going to get a full-time placement in Geraldton. And being young, followed my heart instead of my gut, and I quit my job. And I think that was kind of where I let go of my dream, and that's why I probably didn't pursue it for a long period of my 20s. You know, I moved to the city and I got actively involved in, you know, the fitness community and working as a personal trainer and doing other bits and pieces. And I think at that point, it was absolutely the hardest thing that I ever had to do in terms of, you know, making a crucial decision that was going to be life impacting, because I shut the door on my dream. You know, like I felt like at that moment I was closing the door on everything that I had aspired to be, to follow my heart and do something. Yeah. And so I think that's why the next 10 years for me was, you know, quite hard, because I walked away from my passion, and I tried to get back into parks and wildlife in Perth, and it was almost impossible. You know what I mean? Like it was, there was just no work there, and it was a city. You know, I took my body to the city, but I think I left my soul back in the country, you know, like, and
wow, what a picture.
Yeah, man. And so, you know, that was absolutely the most hardest thing. And then I think on the back of that, on the flip side, the most empowering thing was one day waking up and going, I'm gonna see if I can reignite that flame. Because my 20s was pretty wild, man. I got down into the city, and I'm one of these people that's nothing or flat out. I've got two speeds. It's like, you know, nothing or we're going hard. And, you know, being an impressionable young 20-something year old, I got into some pretty precarious situations through my 20s. But I never look at anything I do with regret, because I wouldn't be here right now where I am if I hadn't been through everything that I've been through in my life, you know. And even looking back now, like if I say I had have stayed in Geraldton and continued to work for Parks and Wildlife, I could still be there. You know, I wouldn't have been here doing what I'm doing now. So that on the back foot of, you know, what was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, what was the glory that followed from that is, you know, where I am now. You know, like I wouldn't be here if I hadn't made that decision back then. So awesome. Yeah, that's a fantastic perspective. And with that, I guess when it comes to decisions and knowing what to do and where to go, what for yourself is a question I've been asking a little bit lately is what is like an ethos of yours that you kind of use as a guiding light in the decisions that you try and make, or that, you know, so the decisions that you have to make through your life. You've just got to back yourself. Like if you want something bad enough, you can get it. People get too concerned with you know, thinking that there's something that they want, but they can't have it because of societal constraints. So, you know, a lot of the things that I do definitely aren't, you know, your standard run-of-the-mill 9 to 5 kind of thing. But that's because I don't want to do that. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably don't want to do the things I'm doing. And the message that I have for you is, get out and live your life. You know, you only get one crack at it as far as I'm aware. And, you know, that's debatable depending on who you talk to. But, you know, that's a whole nother podcast. I think
on this earth.
Yeah.
On this earth.
Yeah, exactly. I love Joe Rogan, so my mind wanders in all different kinds of places. But,
yes.
But yeah, look, my main thing that I would say, my main ethos is, you know, I think it's Mike Tyson said this, like, even you have to work. Everything you do takes hard work. So even when you're doing something that you don't like, do it like you love it. You know, like no one got to where they got just by getting handed on a platter. Like if you have a dream and a vision, just don't stop until you get there. And the other part of that is obviously goal setting, right? So like I've gotten to where I've gotten through goal setting. And goal setting is one of those things where, you know, it's not just set a goal and hope that you're going to get it. Start with daily goals, and then you have weekly goals, and then you have monthly goals, and you have yearly goals.
Okay.
So, you know, daily goals could be something as simple as, I'm not going to hit snooze on the alarm today. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Weekly goals could be something like, I want to hit the gym 4 times this week. I want to improve my fitness and my health and my well-being, and I want to go to the gym 4 times a week. These things are easy. Anybody can do these things. You know, monthly goals could be, you know, I want to, in my life, make 2 reels a week or something like that, or, you know, find this much gold or do this. Yearly goals can be, I want to have another couple of leases. It depends on what you're doing in your life, right? But what I'm getting at is you have to have goals that vary in their degree of toughness.
In the intensity.
The intensity, yeah. And then I think the most important goal is that crazy goal, you know, like that one goal that you just don't think you're ever going to get, but you have to have it. And I think for a lot of people, that's it's materialistic. It's like, you know, I want to have this car, or I want to have this much money, or I want to have, you know, this house or whatever. For me,
totally,
for me, it's got to be something that you get ultimate enjoyment out of. So, you know, another one of my idols, Joe Rogan. I'd love to be on the Joe Rogan Experience. You know what I mean? Like, have a long form conversation with Joe Rogan for 3 hours later on in life. Something like that. You know what I mean? Something that just seems so left field and so crazy, because I think when you've got goals, it gives you passion and it gives you something to get up for every morning. So that's, I think that's probably
that's so cool. And also, it's a great point that you make. Goal setting is so important, and even just from yourself, like where you are now has been through goal setting. You wouldn't have been able to do what you're doing. Would you? Maybe I won't state it. I'll ask. Do you think you could have done what you're doing without setting goals?
Absolutely not, because goal setting is about having a vision. And if you haven't got a vision, you've got nowhere to go, right? Like it's I think you have to challenge yourself every day as well. Like, never be scared to do hard things. And, you know, that's probably one of the things that I picked up throughout my life, you know, when I went through my 20s, is that going through the whole fitness lifestyle and the bodybuilding thing, you know, like it's about discipline. I don't want to get up every day and go and lift heavy stuff. Like, it's hard work, but like if you do it, it's like if you do hard things, you're going to have an easy life. If you do easy things, you're going to have a hard life, you know? So to me, it's all about putting yourself out there and putting in the work that's required to get to the goal that you want to achieve. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that is a great tip. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else, any other side of the wildlife side of things that you haven't told us that you're holding back in regards to work or anything else? I'm just throwing that out there.
There's probably so many, Jaden. Like, it takes me like literally every day, man, I'm coming across, you know, crazy, awesome things. And I think now, because I see it all the time, sometimes I just take it for granted, you know, it's like it's there. Like, look, I don't think there's any other monumental things. Like, I definitely want to get out at some point and do a bit more exploring. So one of my bigger goals as well is to get out and do a tour of the Northwest and just go out and see what, you know, up around the top end and just spend time in areas seeing things that I wouldn't normally get to see. But yeah, I guess in terms of anything else hidden, you know, like I said, man, there's probably heaps. You'd have to ask.
It was extremely open-ended question, and it was semi-intentional. So you kind of mentioned like you'd like to do something about the top end. Maybe moving forwards, what's your trajectory looking like in the cultural heritage side of things, and even the prospecting? Man, are you going to come over to East Coast of Australia and mine the entire way across and do a series of I mined from Western Australia to the eastern side of Australia or something like that? Like, what's your vision? What's your plan?
Look, man, I have so many different bits and pieces going on at the moment. Yeah, so obviously I've got work. I've got the gold mine. I've got the social media thing happening that I'm really trying to push now. I've got, you know, Aussie Gold Hunters, which potentially could turn into another season. We don't know. Fingers crossed. I kind of want to just be able to create something from that. So, now that I've got into the social media side of things, man, I would love to just be able to spend my time cruising around, making content for people out there to see what's out and about. Like I've got a taste for this kind of thing now. I love it. I really enjoy it. I've got a genuine passion for it. Look, never, ever could I say I want to be, even half of what Steve Irwin is, because that bar is just so high. But, I would love to be able to get into documentaries, man, getting out and doing, just educating people about the things that we get to see.
Okay.
And, running eco tours is another thing I want to get into, like prospecting tours, different bits and pieces, giving people a taste of that Pilbara experience, coming up here, coming out, digging up some gold, having a cultural immersion tour with, one of the traditional owners here, and getting to see the things that getting to walk a day in my life, getting to, dig up gold nugget, have a look at some rock art, go out and do like some nighttime wildlife spotting and see what a scorpion looks like under UV light, and, pick up a python in the middle of the road, and just work on what I'm doing now, man, and make even more from that. Yeah. I don't know what that looks like. It's like, I've planted a seed. That seed has sprouted and it's turned into a little bit of a tree, and there's all these different branches. So, all of those branches have the potential to bear fruit. I just don't know which one I'm going to end up landing on. Hopefully I'll get a taste of all of them, but we'll see.
Ah, so cool. Well, as this conversation maybe goes back into the ground, can I ask you ready to play the overrated, underrated segment of this conversation?
Sure. Let's do it.
Sweet. That was confident. I am excited because there's some interesting questions. So how this works, overrated, underrated, I'll give you a statement and then you can respond with overrated or underrated, depending on what you think the statement is referring to, your own idea of truth.
Wait.
What a question.
Let's do it.
So another thing as well, I was going to add to that and I forgot, but that's fine. Let's keep going. Overrated, underrated. First question.
It'll come back to you. You wait. It'll be halfway through. You remember.
Yeah. Starting your own artisanal or prospecting company.
Definitely underrated. I'm doing it. It's arid exploration. we have full sail with that. So yeah, that's part of what I did. And I guess how do you answer underrated or overrated? It's definitely underrated because the sky is the limit, and we are going to push this as far as we can.
My man.
Yeah, it's arid exploration. We have a little prospecting company, and that's what I was talking about in terms of vision, wanting to get people out there to experience a day in the life of the Pilbara experience, man. That's So 100%.
Did you ever think you were going to own a business?
No, I didn't. I mean, who thinks that they're going to own a business? I mean, it's especially a business like this. It's such a business that's left field, right? Like it's No, I didn't think I was going to. In the lead up to having Arid, I had a small landscaping business that, I was doing because, man, I just work. Like I've always been on rosters. So like I, have time at work and then I have time at home, and I don't like the idea of wasting time. So I had like a small landscaping business, and, I told Carls it was a landscaping business, but the reason I got the machines is so we could get into the gold. So she was always like, if you're going to start a business, you can, you're going to go make money. That's kind of what we did. So I was, running around doing landscaping, but at the same time I was taking my machines out and working leases and all the rest of it. So it was a bit of a a bit of a psyop to kind of be like, yeah, this is where we're going to go. But yeah, no, man, I never thought I was going to own a business. And
interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's one of those things about life, right? You just never know what door's going to open and which way it's going to take you.
No, curious but awesome. Question number 2, Kyle. I see what you did there, though, with let's just do this. Get the digger. No, I can do this. I love it. Question number 2.
Now it's a bigger
overrated,
digger.
Underrated. Backyard biodiversity.
Definitely underrated. So when we say overrated, underrated, if we say underrated, that means we're very pro, right?
Yeah.
All right,
very
backyard
pro.
biodiversity. I have bees, I have aquaponics, I have chooks, I have worms. I've got a whole lot, man. I'm so for that. I think in Australia, we have an awesome opportunity to be able to do things in our backyards that you wouldn't get to do in, like, I don't know about Australia. I know, like, living in the regions like I do, you do. So, look, I think to have things like that at home gives you a true connection to country, land, and biodiversity, right? Like, if you're running bees and getting your own honey and having chooks and getting your own eggs and growing your own veggies and your fruit and composting, you just become a better human, man. Like, you're doing what you're meant to do, in my opinion. So, yes, definitely underrated. I think every household should have 3 chooks, a worm farm. Man, it's such a fantastic thing if you've got kids, right? I don't have kids, but I have the neighbours come around and stuff all the time, man, and they're looking at the stuff that we do. And to see the genuine interest in a child's eyes when you're showing them something like that, it just kind of reminds me of how I started getting into this. And I think in the world that we live in now, like, it's more important than ever to have those things available because, what do most kids do these days? They're on a device, right? And yeah.
Funny you say that. I'm just going to jump in because the next question, overrated, underrated, the idea of iPad kids.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're going to go overrated with this. Look, man, kids don't know how to be kids anymore. Do you remember how old are you?
25.
Okay, so I'm 38. So when I was a kid, it's probably the same for you because of the interest that you have. But
I made it just in.
And see,
I know what a cassette tape is.
Yeah. See, 38 for me, I feel, I'm probably a little bit biased here, but I think my age group was the best you could ever be because I went through high school when you first got a mobile phone. So I got to integrate with technology as it came out. I can appreciate these things because it's a large part of what I do now, content creation and all the rest of it and the gadgets and all the bits and pieces. But for kids that are, growing up now, that's everything, man. I think they have them in schools now, right? Like most kids have got smartphones. So their ability to access things that I just don't think every kid should be able to access is just unparalleled now, and like if they want to see so perfect example. So I obviously love social media because it gives me a platform to be able to express the things that I love and help educate people about the things that I'm passionate about. But on the flip side of that, people live vicariously through what people like me do. They're not actually out experiencing themselves. So, most kids these days are using things like that to look at it on a screen rather than getting out and experiencing it. So that's where it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me. I think, it's a hard one, right? Like, I kind of hope that through people seeing that kind of stuff on their devices, on their iPads, that it gives them a bit of a yearning to get out and experience it firsthand. Because I can tell you all right now, seeing it on a screen is one thing. Yeah, it's cool. But like what you get to see versus what I get to do, 10 times better. Get out there and have a crack. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
Love it. That's good. No, that's good. You said plenty. I've only got 2 more questions left on this one. So we're up to number 4. Overrated, underrated, living off grid.
Absolutely underrated as well. And I think that builds into your last kind of question about backyard biodiversity. What's the next step up on that? Living off grid and actually being, in backyard biodiversity, you're bringing a little bit of that into your area. When you go off grid, you're the little bit that's going into that. I think everybody at some point in their life should definitely get out and do something off grid, man. Like that's like I was saying before, my one of my plans is to get like an off-road van and just travel around and document the whole thing so everybody can see what's out there, you know what I mean? Because the only way that you really get an appreciation for what's around and what's about is to go out and experience it. And, like if you're in a city and you've never been off grid, you're not living. I don't think anyway. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you. The fifth and final one. Kyle, overrated, underrated national parks in Australia.
Okay, I'm going to say overrated, and that's only because, all right, I know this is really controversial. You're just looking at me going, what? Okay.
This is the opportunity. This is why you asked in the first place. You're like, hey, can I explain things?
Yeah. I get to see some incredibly pristine areas, right? So I get to go, I fly into places that aren't accessible by car. So I get to see what real pristine means. Pilbara is a perfect example, okay? So I've been into some of the gorge systems that, people haven't been into, and that's true pristine. You go to somewhere like Karijini National Park, right? And what actually happens is you're opening the gates to people that I think don't have I've got to be careful how I word this. I don't feel like they have a real respect for the places that they're visiting. So, you go into Karijini, there's rubbish there. They've built staircases and stuff for people to be able to get access and egress. There's like sunscreen films over the water. Look, I don't like seeing beautiful places like that getting trashed. And I think not that people are doing it on purpose, but I just don't think people have a respect. And, talking to Wildman, I seen a post that he did the other day. I don't know if you've seen it, but he was up camping on a beach somewhere. And, it starts off him being in the video going, I'm out doing a bit of camping this weekend. And it's a beautiful area, loving it, rah, rah, rah. And then he pans across to a campfire that's full of rubbish, dirty nappies, like there's rubbish bags hanging on the trees. That's why I'm going to say overrated, man, because I just don't think that the majority of people have enough respect to visit these areas. And I don't think that if you're going to respect that place, you should be able to go there. Very controversial, okay, I know.
Yeah, well, can I ask what do you think should be done about that? Is your idea thinking then shut off access and only the true campers with the vehicles that can get there are able to access these areas, or you have to do a questionnaire of what's the right amount of rubbish you should leave at the campsite, 1, 5, 0, or 20? Obviously, it's 0, but I
don't know. It's a really hard one, right? Okay, so if you're going to open these areas up to the general public and you are charging a fee, because most of the national parks have some kind of fee and they're managed by a government organisation, right? I think you should be there's not enough money that goes into conservation, in my opinion, all right? So, places like Parks and Wildlife obviously get allocated a budget by the state government or the federal government, depending on where they are. And I don't think that's enough to ensure that people are properly educated about those places, if you know what I mean. So, you need to have more rangers on site educating people, or whether it's picking up or doing whatever, or having more stringent rules, not wearing sunscreen in the water. Look, a place like Karijini, it's a very, very sensitive ecosystem, right? That's like nowhere else on the planet. And you've got incredibly diverse, flora and fauna that are calling these waterways home. And then we've got people swimming in them. I don't like taking selfies, wearing bikinis, standing on the edge of a rock or something. I just feel like that really degrades. Do you know where I'm coming from? It's a hard one.
Yeah.
If you want to go,
I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking. I'm not thinking that Kyle wouldn't. He's not talking about himself. He's talking about other people. Of course, bikinis and Moroccan.
I reckon I could rock a nice set of double Ds. But look, I think if you want to go swimming, go to a water park, go to the beach. If you want to go take selfies, when you go into a national park, it's a bit deeper than that, man. I've just got a bit more of a spiritual connection to the land, I think, and that's from having the pleasure of working with traditional custodians, people that have lived on that land and called it home for millions of years. And I've just got a deeper respect than going there and having a quick look and getting out, having a picnic and going or taking a photo or whatever. To me, it's a bit more than that, and I think that's why I have a little bit of a pessimistic view to opening up really sensitive areas to just any members of the public. It's a hard one, right?
So Yeah, it is a hard one. So would you say that having, well, I would think having national parks that have swimming areas is a good thing. Maybe being more specific with what water or ecosystems can be impacted that don't maybe have such a large domino effect to other places. Because I want to check out as many places as I can. I want to get out there, but it's just like, speaking personally, like I love nature, so I want to get out. I have a different level of respect maybe than other people.
That's the difference. So you're on my level, and probably most of the listeners, I can guarantee that most of the listeners that are tuning into this podcast right now are people that love wildlife, respect the environment, respect culture, and are going to go there, take only photos and leave only footprints. You know what I mean? But it's the general public that I worry about, because these areas, once they're gone, they're gone. You know what I mean? Like, and this is probably a bit politically heated when I say this, but like, those kinds of places like parks and wildlife, I'm sure the people that work for parks and wildlife are very passionate individuals that want to see those places protected and preserved. But when you look at it from an ecotourism point of view, the government's just trying to raise revenue by having people go to these areas, right? So that's what it's about. And so I think
right,
the conservation status is sometimes overlooked for tourism. I don't know. I've just seen it up here, when you have these like day use areas and stuff that are incredibly, diverse and quite sensitive, when you have people that just go in there and have no respect and leave their rubbish. And I see a lot of that, especially up here. It's a very isolated spot that we live in. Just driving down the road, sometimes you can be driving down the highway, and the amount of rubbish that you see, most people just unfortunately don't see the wilderness like you and me or your listeners, I think. And that's why I have a bit of a hard stance on getting back to your original question, overrated, underrated, being, national parks are overrated. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, that's you've explained it well, and I understand what you're saying, and it is a tough kind of question as you stated it, and so we'll kind of leaving it there with the answer is unknown so far. The answer is unknown.
I think if people genuinely want to get in there and appreciate what's out and about, all good. But like, if you're going to go in there and you're going to leave your rubbish, and
it's like, where do you go from that? And it's tough. It's tough. So how to solve that? We don't know. But all the same, still, I appreciate everything that you've had to say about all these topics, and I've loved hearing like your story, man. This has been so cool. Where can people find you, and what would you like to leave the listeners with? Okay, so look, if you guys want to basically tune into my crazy adventures outdoors, give me a follow at He Is Wild and Free. So it's he_is_wild_and_free. And look, what you're going to see on my Instagram is pretty much everything you've heard here. Treasure hunts, digging up gold nuggets, wildlife, survival tips, and just me in a Cobra hat, rocking it, having a ball, doing the things that I do, loving life. Look, if you're listening from the UK or anywhere outside of Australia, tune into Aussie Gold Hunters season 10, because you'll see me on there making a bit of a fool of myself, digging up gold nuggets. And if you're in Australia, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait probably another year before they air season 10 here. Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why that is.
I'm waiting. I'll have to wait. It was filmed in Australia. Man, the internet's pretty good. It should get here first.
I can't say that you're going to find it on YouTube, because it's it hasn't been released in Australia. But if you happen to go on YouTube and you find some episodes of season 10, hey, knock yourself out. But yeah, yes. Look, I'm definitely on a bit of a path to following this little bit of a dream that I've etched out for myself, and appreciate the support, because the more you guys like it, the more I do it, and I'm hoping to get out there and really take this as far as I can.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us, man.
Man, thank you. It was a blast. I had an absolute ball.
Thank you for watching or listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to find more information on today's guest or more information on the podcast, you can find those details in the description below. Otherwise, I hope and look forward to seeing you in the next one.